Hey everyone, in today's video, I want to show you how to edit with OpenShot Video Editor, a completely free and open source video editor that you could use on a Windows or Mac or even Linux. And I've been editing professionally for 15 years and I've been teaching it for about 4 years or so. So I do have all kinds of tutorials for other editing software and editing techniques. So I'll put a playlist in the description if you want to learn more and learn more advanced video editors like Adobe Premiere, for example. So the very first step is just click the link in the description below to come to this website, and it's just openshot.org. And if you press download here, it will recognize your computer here. If it's a PC, it will show you the PC version. I'm on a Mac here. And the application is actually the same for both. Go ahead and download it and then unzip and open the file here. Let me go ahead and open it up here. I moved it to my application folder, so I'm gonna double click to open it up. And what's great about this is it's laid out like the more professional video editors, okay? Right here is your project window. So all your media, video, audio, images, everything shows up over here once you bring them in. And then this is your preview of your actual video over here. And then down here is what's called the timeline, your edited timeline. All your edits will take place down here. Now, most video editors are laid out exactly like this with these three major windows. And I'll kind of walk you through some of these icons over here. So you have icons on top here. You could use transition and effects on these tabs over here, which we'll talk about. And then you have some tools for the timeline. These are how you actually make some of your edits over here. And then this is going to be the slider to zoom in and out of your timeline. So we'll go through that as we get going. The first thing I typically do is I import my video files or audio files or even images if I want to use that. So to do that, you just press the plus sign up here and import file. And I'm actually going to show you a real project here. So I'm building a YouTube studio. So here's a card I shot on my camera. So let me go inside of this card. And typically you want to find MP4 files like these MP4 files. So I'm going to select a bunch of these. I'm just pressing Command or Control here if you're on a PC and select all the MP4 files you want to bring in. Now, if you have audio files like MP3, that's an audio file, you could bring in the same way. And I'll go ahead and press Open and it's going to start bringing it in here. Now, it may take a little bit of time depending on how much you're bringing in. Okay, it's done. So I have a video clip of me talking so I could show you how to work with clips like that. And then I just got footage of building the studio here that has no audio. So I'll show you how to work with both. And then up here, it lets you sort things by video. So if it's a video file like MP4 files, they'll show up. But if you sort by audio, nothing is going to show up because I don't have an audio only file, and same with images. So this does come in handy when you have a lot of stuff going on here. You could also right click in this empty section and choose import file this way. So that's kind of the same thing as pressing the plus sign. And let me just go ahead and bring like an image here. I'll show you how to use an image like this too. So I'll press enter on that. And let me go to show all here. So it actually doesn't filter out the image. So here is the image. Okay, so that's importing media. I'll bring in actually a music file too. I'll bring in this music file. I get my music from a place called Envato Elements and they're royalty free, so I won't get into any copyright related issues. So if you want your music the same way I get it, I'll put a link below and I have videos explaining how that works. So let me go ahead and import this in. So you can see that's an audio file, that's music, this is a picture, and these are all videos. Next is assembling your project. So assembly typically means just placing your video files from up here into your timeline. And just to explain the timeline, timeline has multiple different tracks by default. You see it has 5 different tracks. Typically, we're just gonna work on track 1, and then I'll show you reasons why you'll use track 2 and 3. But right now, let's just focus on track 1. Let's just imagine we only had one track here. Now, all we have to do is to look at any of these clips. You could go ahead and right click on it or control click if you're on a Mac like me, and then you could preview the file. This is just so you kind of get a glimpse of what that video file looks like. So this is just me talking. This is what it looks like, right? Usually in other video editors, there's a whole preview window that makes it a little bit easier. You don't have to do that. But in this one, it's not the case. So what I typically do is I'll go to a file I want to start with, I'll grab it and I'll bring it down here and put it in the very beginning of track 1. And this is gonna start my edit. And now you could see the preview shows up over here, right? So this timeline is your clips in the order that you lay them out. And up here is, if you press play, is how you could see all of it from that timeline, okay? So what you could do here is go through all your clips. So I'll bring this one down. This one's gonna be much, much longer because it's me talking. So there it is. And the reason why it's snapped onto the other one is because this little magnet is turned on. This is snapping. Okay, that just means one clip easily snaps to another clip just like this as I get them to connect. So now if I press play, what happens is when this clip is done, it just cuts to another clip. So that's just a simple edit from one clip to another clip. That's just called a cut when there's no transition between. We'll talk about transitions in a bit. So in the assembly project, this is typically what I do, right? I lay down all my shots in the order that I want the shot. And here, actually, let me show you. This is a good time to show you. You could shrink the timeline down like this. So if you have a lot of stuff like this and you can't see it, go towards the minus sign. Also, minus and plus on your keyboard do the same exact thing. So I could just drag more clips down here, make sure it snaps to the next one, and I could continue to build out my project like this, right? So if you want to take your time with this, another way to do it is you could right click on one of these, hold down the right click, and then preview the file. Make sure it's the clip that you want before you bring it down. And there's another option here that I'm not a fan of, but if you right click on any clip, you could add to timeline this way, select this, and it gives you this big menu of selecting the start time and the length of the file. I don't like to do this. I like to just bring the whole clip down here, and then I'll make my edits down here. This is just me assembling, not editing. This assembly is just choosing which clips I want to use, and then I'll come and edit it down here once the assembly is complete. So I'll add a couple more clips here, and then I'll go ahead and show you how to actually make some changes down here to your timeline. Okay, one of the most common things once you assemble is you'll decide that the order which you laid down clips is not the way you wanted it. Let's say this clip should have came after the following clip, right? So how do I change the order? Well, if I grab this clip, I could bring it before this clip and let go. And look what happens. It just blended the two clips together, right? That's not what we wanted. I don't want this gap here. I just wanted to move one and move the other one back. So press Command or Control Z. That's undo. I'm gonna press that 2 times. Undo comes in really handy. It's also up here under the edit menu, redo and undo, and it'll show you the keyboard shortcuts for them. But I use that all the time. So it's one of the keyboard shortcuts that I recommend you learn. And I use spacebar all the time because if you come up here and press spacebar, that basically plays and pauses the video, a very useful option as well. Okay, so how do we actually change the order of the clips? Well, you could do this. You could bring one and put it on top like this, and then bring this one over here, and then bring this one down. So it's kind of like a puzzle if you want to use it that way. You could drag things to another track, create this gap, and then change the order of your clips. If you want to change 2 clips, select 2 like this, just drag over the 2, bring them up, and then you could go ahead and move this one over, and then move this. So this is really the basics of video editing here, where you move your tracks around. Anytime also you could select the clip and press delete, and that will delete, and then make sure you close this gap, otherwise it will just show black video here. So you want to close that gap. You don't want to have any of these blank sections, because if you go to them, let me just bring this line over here, and if I press play, this is literally what your video is going to look like. It's just a black screen. So you don't want these gaps. You want to just go ahead and close them up like this when you make edits. That's how you move different clips around here on your timeline, and it's also how you delete a clip that you change your mind on. We still haven't edited, right? This is still assembly. So we learn how to bring footage into this box and then bring it down here. We learn how to change the order, and we learn just pressing delete and then closing that gap. But now let's get into editing our clip. So sometimes this is just called trimming a clip or splitting a clip. There's gonna be multiple different things we're gonna learn here. So what I wanna do here is let me go ahead on this clip and press start. And let's say I wanted to start this clip here, not where it originally started. So one way to do that is with this clip selected, go up here and use this scissor tool, activate it, and then come back here and then cut on that line. Okay, so you cut, and then if you give it a second, it makes 2 clips out of that clip. This is called splitting the clip. So now I'm gonna deactivate the scissor here, and if I press delete, if I select this, press delete, see it creates that gap for me. And then I could close that gap. Now I basically made an edit, right? I started my clip a little bit later than the original clip, and then I could do the same thing to end it, or I could actually stretch it in like this. So this kind of gets the same result. Instead of splitting the clip, I could change the clip that way. The splitting comes in handy because with the split, let me show you, I'll use the scissor tool. You could cut here and you could cut again here. And then let me take the scissor off here and I could select this and cut in between clips too, right? So now I could just take another clip and let me bring this clip, for example, between those two clips, right? So then it'll go from this clip to a new clip and then back to the original clip. So this is kind of useful, but really all you have to know here is, let me go ahead and select this and delete it. All you have to know here is when you have a clip, if you want to start it later, just bring it in this way, okay, and you'll get a live preview of when it starts. And if you want to end it sooner, bring it in this way and you get a live preview of that. And if you want to split it, use the scissor tool so you could precisely cut where you want to cut. In this program, this is called the razor tool. On some programs, it's called the cut tool or the blade tool. And basically, it's the same process of cutting, which is really the ultimate editing tool that you have in any video editor. So let's go to a track where I'm talking and do the same thing, right? So I'm not talking in the beginning. So I talk, let's see, right here. I'm just muting here so I could talk over it, but I'll just drag over here, right there. And I'm gonna close this gap here. And if I go back in the beginning of this clip now and press start, it starts exactly in the spot that I want, right? So this is the basics of editing. Let's talk about adding what's called B-roll. So a lot of times when I make videos, I'm talking, but then I want to show what it is that I'm talking about and cut away from myself, but still keep the audio. Okay, so this track has audio of me talking. So to do that is called either a cutaway or adding B-roll, and that's where track 2 comes in handy. So to show you an example, if I press play here, I'm talking and I'm talking about, let's say, this room or this drywall. So what I could do is find a shot up here that shows that drywall, like this shot here, and I could grab it and bring it here on track 2. Not on track 1 because it will delete the audio and my video behind it. But if I put it on track 2, this is what ends up happening. If I go a little bit sooner, I'll press play and then it will cut away to the shot that I'm talking about here. And you could also edit these the same way as any other video on any other track, right? Bring it in to start it later, end it sooner. You could still use the razor tool to cut it, but these cutaways are really, really useful because basically I'm talking here, I'm talking about this thing. You don't need to be looking at my face. It will cut to the thing I'm talking about. And as soon as this clip gets to an end, let me just let it get to an end here, it's gonna cut right back to me, right? Then I'm still talking. And I could add maybe another B-roll clip or cutaway clip on top here. So it'll cut back to me, then it will cut back to this other video clip. So that's a really good use case of a track 2 for using these cutaways. Oftentimes you'll hear the word B-roll, that's why I wanted to mention it here, but a lot of times they might be referred to as a cutaway. That's when you cut away from the main action to a secondary action to show what you're talking about. What's great about this is you could also do this with pictures too, and I'll show you that when we get to that section. Now, typically with every video editor, if you select a clip and right click on it, you do get a bunch of options. Like you could copy the effects of the clip, you could fade a clip, you could do all these different things. But I don't want to overwhelm you with all these options, but I'll mention some of the more important ones as we go through. Right now, all I want you to worry about is assembling your whole story here and make all your edits to it by just simply getting this arrow tool and dragging the inside and the outside and using the razor tool to make your cuts. That's really all there is, and make sure the snapping tool is activated. Most of the times it makes your edits a lot easier. Now let's go ahead and add music to our project. Let's say we finish editing our project. So how do we add music to our project? And then I'll show you how to actually work with audio too. That's the audio of you talking, for example. You could change a lot of that later too. Here's our audio file up here. I'm gonna grab it and I wanna put it on a timeline on a different track though. I don't wanna put it on my video track because it'll erase what's already there. I want to put it on a blank track. If at this point you don't have a blank track, just right click in this area and add a track above or below so you actually get an empty track. And you could rename your track music, for example, in this case, and it will look like this. So you have your two video tracks, right? The main A-roll track, the B-roll track, and now you have a music track. So that's how you use multiple tracks. Let me just press play to show you what happens now. Kind of the 10-foot sheet. And again, because of... So here's the problem when you add music like this. You can't hear someone talking. It's great if no one is talking and I was just using these shots. But since someone is talking, we need to worry about working with audio levels. So let's go ahead and tweak audio levels and work with audio now. For music, if you right click on a music track, you should change the volume of the track for the entire clip typically. And I'll go ahead and reduce this for my track to like 30%. Now again, go ahead and press play and make sure if you're using this with someone talking, it's very, very audible here and the music is not interfering. This should make it background music. This doesn't have a whole bunch of control, and this is one of the reasons why I like the more advanced video editors here, but it does give you simple explanation. Like if you wanted to fade something in or fade in slower, you have all those options. You could also fade out the audio clips. This is usually handy for the end of your clip as well. But I like having the volume level here, and it's one of the most useful options here. And you could do this with your talking head too. If you have someone talking like I'm talking here, you could right click on that track and you could go ahead and change their volume here. And let's go to the end here with our music file. Let's see, our music file ends here. And typically I like to fade out any audio. So again, I showed you this for a second, but if you right click on it and go to volume, there's an option here that at the end of the clip, you fade it out slowly or fast. I like to end it slow, and you see you get the little green dot over here and the audio is gonna smooth out here at the end. Now I do this for the beginning and end when I use music, and I fade out the audio is something that you should do if you're using a music track. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about transitions. So there's a tab right here called transitions. And there is a lot of transitions that I definitely don't think you should ever use, like these kind of transitions. But what I like, and typically this is true with any editing software, I like to do just this fade transition. So let me show you. If you grab it and put it at the end of a clip like this, for example, and if I go over here and press play, you can see it goes from one clip to another clip like this, right? But it's far too long, so you want to kind of squeeze it to make it shorter and make sure it's at the end of the clip. It's a little bit glitchy here, so that's another issue with this program that I don't like. It's a little bit hard on your computer the way it deals with transitions here, where Adobe Premiere, for example, doesn't do that. But I recommend you keep the transitions very, very simple. Basically, these top ones are really nice to use, but you just drag it, put it at the end of the clip, and then change it here. You could also add transition actually like this in between clips like this too on the same track, and then shrink them down here. Again, I don't like these type of transitions. I stick with fade or just no transition at all typically on most editing projects. Now effects too are kind of like transitions, but instead of going between clips, they go on top of the clip. So let's say I wanted to add an effect to this, right? Let's say I wanted to make this brighter. I could grab this, drop it on top. Okay, now you see that you got that B right here. So now if I select this and choose properties, I should get some kind of a box that looks like this, where I could grab the brightness value and make it darker if I go this way, or brighter. This one was fine, but I could also change the contrast. So if you want things to really pop, you basically bring up the contrast. That makes the blacks blacker and the highlights brighter. That's what contrast does here. So that's one of the useful filters that we have. If I don't want it, I could go ahead and right click on it and remove that effect, then it's gone. Same thing, if I wanted to blur this clip, I could drop the blur. Again, I'll right click and add properties. This will open up, and then I could go ahead and make changes to how much it blurs. So you can see that. Okay, so now let's talk about adding a picture. Let me close this one and let's go back to our project file, and we had this picture here. So with pictures, it's kind of the same thing. You bring it and dedicate a track to it like this. So then it will go from a video of me talking and it will cut to that picture, just like how B-roll works. So this is how you add a picture, and with pictures you also have an option to animate it a little bit too. So start of a clip, you could zoom in and see what that looks like. So you could get this kind of effect for cutting into a picture. So that's really handy. That's just right clicking again and animating. You do have other options like fading and rotating too, but I usually stick with animate or fade on that. And you have an ability to add text. That's in your top menu. If you come, there's a top menu and there's a title menu. Animated titles requires another free program, so I'm not going to show you that. But if you click it, it's going to tell you, if I choose one of these, it's going to show you that you need Blender. So that's for more advanced animated text. But for simple text, this is all you need. Go up to title and choose title right here. And you have a bunch of options like this. But if you wanted to do simple text, let me find a simple text here. Let's go with this title right here. So this is just the title. I could go ahead and change this to my name, for example. We'll go there and then let's press save. And it appears like this, just like any other type of asset that you have, like video or image. You could grab it and bring it down here. And you could see this is a great title, for example, if you wanted to show someone's name like that. And some of those are full screen, so you have a bunch of options under the title tab when you choose it. So choose one that closely represents like a title, could be like this or like this, where it shows up in the middle so it doesn't show up on the side like this. And you could use Blender if you want more advanced options there. And it's really that simple to add text. I'll delete this one. And last thing I want to show you is when you're done with your project, first save it, because it actually is not saving your project. So you have to come up here. There's an option to save a project. This way you could come back to this project. So title it and save it where you're going to be able to find it later. And then come up here to File. And then we want to actually export our project. So saving it is different than exporting. Exporting gives you a finished video file that you could use. Saving basically lets you come back to this edited project. So I'm going to go ahead and export. You also have, if I show you right up here, an icon for export, this red icon. Click it. And again, name your project and your destination where this file is going to show up. So I'll put it on my desktop. Now for formats, you don't have to worry about this. Just leave it on all format because we're going to change things here. So for targets, we always want MP4. But there are MOVs and AVI, but MP4 is the most common way things are encoded. So in this case, we're gonna go MP4, that's what YouTube videos are. And H.264, that's the encoding as well. So this is what you want, this one typically. And use the CPU option instead of this one because it'll do it faster using your computer's processor. So I use this right here every time with every editing software basically. And then video profile. This one could get a little bit confusing if you're not sure what the video was shot in. Mine, for example, was shot in this format. It was in 4K at 2398 frames per second. And this is the resolution. But I know this could be really overwhelming if you've never really edited before. So what I typically recommend, if you know it was shot in 4K, typically this is the one you choose, or this one, the 2997 frame rate. These are the two more common frame rates with cameras. But if you have no idea, a safe one is actually this one right here, this 1080. This is HD 2398 or 2997. Now I don't know what you shot your footage on or where you got it from, so I'm not sure which frame rate it would be, but both of these are the most common for HD. I would stay away from 720p, it's far too outdated. 1080, if you are 4K, do the 4K options. In this case, and almost all the time now, I choose this one for YouTube, for example. Quality, leave that on high, and then just press export right over here. And then this may take quite a while, okay? So it's taking 8 minutes, but I have a pretty powerful computer, but it's going a little bit faster than that. So I know we covered a lot of stuff in this video, so hopefully the way I laid it out for you was easy to comprehend, because you know you kind of got to walk through the editing process in the order I showed you from assembly. Don't jump into adding effects. Kind of walk it through the way I showed you. every project that I've created for clients in the last 15 years has kind of followed this path. Okay, and I organize everything onto an external hard drive. If you're editing more than one project, definitely buy one of these external hard drives because video files are really, really big. Okay, so I'll put a link to this one in the description as well. But hopefully this was useful to you. As I mentioned in the beginning, I have resources to all kinds of editing softwares and editing tutorial, and I have a playlist in the description if you want to learn more about different ways to edit. This is not the only software out there, but it is free and open source and easy to learn. Once you learn it, you could always upgrade to a different paid version. Thanks so much for all your time. Please give it a thumbs up, share it with anyone else that may find it useful, and I will see you next time.